Replace China to become the world's factory, even a world-class power, is India's unwavering pursuit. For more than 20 years, under long-term rapid economic growth, many Indians already believe the goal is within easy reach. Success is inevitable. Modi is even more spirited, frequently grabbing headlines in international trending topics, towards the US, Japan, Europe, and Australia, forming alliances and maneuvering, eager to seize its own great power status. But when the year 2025 arrives, in the overlooked peninsula, India seems to have suddenly shifted from expansion to despair. The rapid economic growth is not. GDP growth is leveling off, foreign capital is fleeing, and the stock market is falling. The discussions among Indians have shifted from surpassing to reflection, and the service industry, which occupies half of the GDP, indicates that Indian manufacturing has completely turned into a bubble. The Modi government has lost the ambition to challenge the world's factory, even when facing Trump's tariffs. Their argument was that India has no exports, and poses no threat to American manufacturing. As for the northern neighbor, India is no longer as arrogant, and has begun seeking peace and friendship. In a daze, India has become somewhat unfamiliar. So, what exactly has happened after India's transformation? Why has the manufacturing dream of this South Asian giant become an illusion? The people of this subcontinent still face what seemingly insurmountable dilemmas. Today's discussion will focus on India. India is located in South Asia, covering an area of 2.98 million square kilometers. Nizamabad, H. Mundri, X 14.6 E Madate Andaman RT Blair Madras Andaman RT Blair Mysore, Nair Mysore Salem, Little Eotanali. Combining this with their GDP total of 35 trillion in 2023, it can be said that India has indeed become a world power. And over the past few decades, India has made significant progress in various aspects. But the good news for India stops here. The current situation is that GDP growth is stabilizing. The forecast for 2025 is 6.5. Rapid growth is no longer. It will take about a decade for per capita figures to surpass India. Foreign investment is rapidly declining, and international assets are fleeing. The entire country faces a multitude of systemic issues. There seems to be no hope for a solution at all. This has resulted in the usually confident Indians losing their confidence. Infrastructure is the most criticized aspect. As a major country long on the brink of takeoff, India's infrastructure, in terms of both quality and quantity, is far from sufficient to support their greater ambitions. The quality of construction needs no explanation. The only true God, renowned domestically and internationally. There are countless cases. Let's highlight a few good ones. Bangalore Airport Terminal 2 was inaugurated at the end of 2022 by Prime Minister Modi himself. It is touted as the most beautiful airport in the world, a masterpiece of national infrastructure. Less than a year in operation, rain leaks were discovered as early as May 2023. Large-scale leaks occurred in May 2024. More than a dozen flights were diverted as a result. Let me reiterate that this is considered good. Normally, in the face of heavy rain, Indian airports collapse outright. For example, in June 2024, Terminal 1 at Delhi Airport crushed a poor soul just like that. Several people were injured. The same story is unfolding at airports in Mumbai, Lucknow, and elsewhere. Outside of airports, India's infrastructure is also performing quite reliably. In 2024, just 1 year after being put into use, the Delhi Underground Tunnel, built at a cost of 77 billion rupees to welcome the G20, suffered severe flooding due to serious design and technical flaws, and was forced to close. But this is in India, so all of this is still not the worst. Because airports and tunnels are ultimately oriented towards the global stage, construction and quality are executed according to high standards. Local bridges and roads are the charming moments of India's infrastructure. It is said that there are bridge collapse incidents in India every month. Last year, Bihar even set a record of 13 collapses in 3 weeks. More than 1,000 Indians die each year on average, due to building collapses. Joining in the fun can be quite dangerous in India. 3 years ago, a suspension bridge in Gujarat, after a long period of closed maintenance, opened just before the festival. As a result, because too many people visited, the onlookers later found out that the company responsible for bridge maintenance, Orwa, actually specializes in manufacturing clocks and calculators, with no relevant experience. The underlying reasons are not just corruption. Looking at the macro data, the speed of infrastructure development in India is quite astonishing. They have the largest road network in the world, the 5th largest subway network. Modi still scales up astonishingly every year, invested in infrastructure construction. It sounds great, but this is India. Everything here is somewhat exaggerated or inflated. As far as infrastructure is concerned, the Indian government uses the lowest bidder wins, L1, method for bidding. The lowest bidder wins the contract. Therefore, contractors must first engage in bribery. Then they propose an unrealistically low price. Ultimately, they try their best to cut corners on the project, to recoup the bribes and make a profit. As for safety and quality, leave it to God. Furthermore, India's construction workers and talent are also problematic. Indeed, there is no shortage of smart minds here. So many Indian-American CEOs, although we are quite dissatisfied with their management performance, but they manage to rise to such high positions. They are definitely smart, but the issue lies with the smartness in India. During the colonial period, the British had their own needs. There was no promotion of universal basic education in India. Instead, elite education was chosen to meet the administrative needs of the colony. After the establishment of the nation, India yearned for rapid technological development. Thus, a clever shortcut was chosen to expand higher education based on the British foundation, to build top-tier universities and attract more high-end talent. The result of this, simply put, is that there are fewer primary school students in India, but more university students. Looking at the timeline of the 1980s, 93% of Chinese children attended primary school, but only 69% of Indian children could receive basic education. Moreover, there is a considerable amount of exaggeration in this basic education. However, compared to the 1.7% university enrollment rate of Tokyo University in the 1980s, India's rate is much higher. It can reach 8%. Hence, elite education. Modi's religious policies led to religious education, combined with India's impoverished grassroots education level, resulting in India having an abundance of engineers but a severe lack of skilled workers. Only 8% of the current workforce has received formal vocational training. This is another reason for India's poor infrastructure and manufacturing. This would be acceptable if it were the case for other countries. We can conclude the topic here. But we must emphasize, this is India. There is always no shortage of problems. What is most difficult regarding infrastructure? And that is clean and hygienic. The country's urban appearance and environmental landscape. It is completely a lump in the physical sense. We have talked about so many countries. Whether it's because of poverty or population, few countries can compare to India in terms of filth and chaos. Haiti is terrible. But Haiti does not have a strong, stable, and wealthy government like India. The environment in Ulaanbaatar is fragmented. But at least the E. coli there is still within a controlled range. Lima is short of water and money. But there are no dirty animals running around the streets. It can be said, benefiting from over a decade of substantial investment in governance by Prime Minister Modi, India has become a giant landfill that incorporates the worst of many practices. Why is this the case? It is obvious. This cannot be explained simply by corruption and construction standards. Indian intellectuals attribute the dirtiness to the dross of traditional Indian culture. They believe that Indians are inherently dirty. They will never take the initiative to clean like the Japanese do, unless under strict administrative management. To some extent, there is some truth to what they say. In traditional Indian society, cleaning is the responsibility of specific castes. Those of higher status do not engage in cleaning. So it is quite peculiar that, in India, if you ask someone to clean the street in front of their house, that person may actually feel offended. In Rwanda, there is a day each month for a nationwide cleanup of the streets. But in India, it is very difficult to mobilize even one person for routine sanitation maintenance. Of course, in a country where garbage can trigger landslides, the ideology is certainly not the only reason. The fiscal distribution of the Indian government is also worth debating. Their central and state level administrative bodies are very powerful and very wealthy, but the governance at the lower levels is utterly poor. The biggest difficulty at the local level is lack of funds. The 2022 report from the Reserve Bank of India shows the self-generated revenue of urban local bodies accounts for only 0.6% of GDP, far lower than Brazil's 7%. And it's not over yet. Besides lacking money, there are also no people at the grassroots level. Unlike countries like East Asia, the proportion of civil servants and employees at the grassroots level in India is very low. And even below this low percentage, the 2023 research report shows the vacancies in Indian municipal corporations have reached 35%. Grassroots work is extremely difficult. Politically, India claims to be a democratic superpower, but it can be decentralized to the local level. Governance is completely overshadowed by party interests. Muslims are being scapegoated for all the problems. The community finds it hard to voice their concerns. Leaders make decisions based on their own party elections. Local areas have no money or power, yet must deal with the same issues. And this decision-making process involves parties, governments at all levels, and local organizations. Various chaotic committees all want to get involved. Well-intentioned projects often get stuck at some point in the process. They stall repeatedly due to disputes over interests. For example, Japanese aid. Modi's ambitious Diamond Quadrilateral high-speed rail project is stalled precisely due to land acquisition issues. Endless bureaucratic wrangling has led to its difficulties in getting off the ground. India needs deep and extensive reforms to resolve these issues, but Modi has chosen to push forward with grand projects. At the national level, he continuously launches large-scale, forward-thinking megaprojects. He attempts to showcase India's robust development momentum through large projects, hefty investments, and major infrastructure, to highlight India's strong development drive. But the real India, under the leadership of this stable, well-funded government, is still an endless garbage dump. The common people have little perception of India's rapid development as shown in reports. There is hardly any awareness. India's intellectuals are fortunate. They can say whatever they want without much risk of being wrong, because this country is not lacking in deep-rooted problems. Beneath the surface of conventional governance techniques, there lie contradictions that are hard to resolve in this ancient land. For example, geographical issues. From the map, India's conditions seem perfect. It boasts vast plains and plateaus. It has a warm, humid climate and a long coastline. Many believe the conditions of this South Asian giant are much better than those of the Eastern giant, right? It seems not to be the case. India's coastline is very long. With modern technology supporting it, India also has no shortage of major ports. But the highest population density in the entire subcontinent is found in the inland Ganges plain. Cities like Bangalore and New Delhi are located inland. However, India lacks rivers like the Yangtze and the Mississippi. There is no developed inland waterway shipping system. There are difficulties in linking land and sea. It is impossible to form a large inland industrial network like that of East China. Adding to this is the poor infrastructure on land, the diverse languages and cultures of each state. It is difficult to form a cohesive strategy nationwide. The heat in India trends every summer with high temperatures. However, the heat in India is different from that in China. Rainfall and heat don't coincide. Crop yields are limited. Moreover, the heat leads to high evaporation rates. This makes the available water resources in India seem less than they appear. The country's own water and municipal infrastructure is lacking. As a result, water resources in India are extremely scarce. It often leads to conflicts over water with neighboring Pakistan and Bangladesh. Similarly, the high temperatures also affect India's industry. This requires a large amount of electricity to solve. However, India's energy is also a major issue. The country lacks oil and natural gas. It needs to use foreign exchange to purchase abroad. There is coal domestically, but it is low in calorific value and high in ash content, which is inferior coal. In simple terms, it means achieving the same effect. Indian coal requires a larger quantity, resulting in more smog. This brings about more widespread air pollution. Last year, among the 20 most polluted cities in the world, India occupied 13 seats while the Eastern Power had only 1 seat. The overall negative effect has reduced the life expectancy of all Indians by 5.2 years. This is the combined effect of geography and policy. The Modi government's foreign policy is another big bombshell. Upon airline T. Japan Airline. It has made its presence felt in international occasions. Japan Airlines. On one hand, it is due to India's large national size. More importantly, the West favors India. They want to court India to contain the Eastern Power. Japan India, Australia India, and US India are all boasting loudly. Now, 10 years have passed. The goal of containment has not been achieved at all. The Western camp has already begun to fracture. Everyone wants to suppress the manufacturing industry in the East, but the cards won't be laid out for India. Modi has gone from being energetic to somewhat aged and lonely. His imagined script is to unite Japan, South Korea, Australia, the US, and Europe to contain the East. After achieving this, take over the manufacturing industry of the world's factory entirely. Winning this round without effort. He probably hasn't seriously thought about it at all. How to build a national industrial system. Peacefully seize the crown of the manufacturing industry through competition. The situation is now clear. The situation in the East has already formed. The share of India's manufacturing industry in GDP is declining year by year. A large number of youths are returning to farming. What Modi can do is only to once again request his northern neighbor whether they can become friends again. However, these issues can theoretically be resolved through effort and time. But the problem is, for India, time is no longer on their side. The real starting point of India's reforms was in 1991. They already lagged behind the East from the start. We just talked about the education issue. The educational approach since India's independence has affected the country's development since then. In 1988, India had a literacy rate as low as 60%. In China, India, just loosening its economy, couldn't run fast at that time. It was hard to convert the demographic dividend into productivity. A slow start meant losing the initiative in competition with the East. The whole country turned to outsourcing in the service industry. Manufacturing still remains lukewarm to this day. Moreover, looking from a larger perspective, the prosperity of global manufacturing will not last indefinitely. Whether it is the successful automation transformation of Eastern powers, or Trump's anti-globalization plans, or the hijacking by Bangladesh and Vietnam, all have turned India's manufacturing into a dream. The country's birth rate has currently reached a bottleneck. It is expected to face aging issues this century. What they are facing is not aging before becoming rich. Instead, it is aging before escaping poverty. India has permanently lost the chance, the possibility of becoming the next world's factory. This is not only the judgment of economists, it is also the revelation of Indian officials. The upper echelons may have given up on efforts to replace China in manufacturing. Make in India has become an illusion, something unattainable. Infrastructure is lagging, and industry is not thriving. The transition has failed, and the government is inefficient. India is struggling in a vicious cycle. But time waits for no one. A large number of graduates need jobs every year. Yet they face a youth unemployment rate as high as 45%. Even students from the Indian Institutes of Technology are worried about their futures. Young people place their hope of changing their fate on the Indian stock market. However, the current high valuations and economic failures, 488, 4 woo-woo, allowing Indian stocks to plummet continuously has caused the greatest losses. Muslims and Sikhs also have to face another issue. The ruling party's endless smear campaigns and attacks. Even these could still be accepted by the Indian people. However, the overwhelming garbage and pollution are what lead to the complete collapse of India's victory narrative. More and more people are no longer blindly confident. They are searching for new solutions. They demand comprehensive learning from Eastern powers in Japan. They reject Modi's empty slogans and ineffective electoral politics. But is this useful? Alright, I am Xiao Mu. We will stop here for this episode. Thank you all for watching.